Welcome to Abnormal, the podcast for normal people who want to do abnormal things. Today I'm joined by Gabe Heck, one of the fastest rising names in the Hyrox world. Otherwise known as the Beast of Bangkok, I'm going to say. Gabe has been one of the college runners dominating races across Asia, regularly finishing on top of the podium, and of course pushing that sub-hour time in one of the toughest fitness competitions on the planet. Beyond the results, he's someone who thinks deeply about training, recovery, and the mental side of competing. And I'm excited to hear his story. Gabe Heck, welcome to Abnormal.
Thanks so much for having me, dude. Really appreciate it.
The Beast of Bangkok. Now, I don't know if this is a real nickname, but when I was doing my research, I saw a big article and the headline was Beast of Bangkok. Any truth behind that?
You know, I'll embrace it. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's, I try to remain humble in the sport. Obviously, that's a nice, very nice title to have, though.
Talk us through the accolades then. I know you're a very humble guy, but for the sake of the podcast context, let's stick with Hyrox first. What's your resume looking like in Hyrox these days? What have you achieved?
So I came into the sport just a little over 2 years ago. I think the first race, I'm pretty sure you were at that race too, in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong, yeah.
And that was a last chance qualifier for Worlds in 2023, which was dramatic to say the least. It was an exciting race. I crossed the finish line first, but I got a minute penalty, so then that bumped me back to third place in that race. But still, it was a really good sort of like debut performance, and that just got me really excited to see like, hey, what can I do in this new torturous, crazy sport. So then that just kind of set me off on traveling around mainly the APAC region, Southeast Asia, Australia. I've done one competition in the US and a couple in Europe, but yeah, just seeing what I can do these different events, and some good performances, some not so good ones, but it's been an amazing journey, and just been grateful for all the people I've met. As you know, it's such a really awesome community of people as well. So just like all the friendships, connections I've made through it has been a blast, man. So still trying to reach a higher level, get into that elite 15. It's not easy. It's getting more challenging every year, but I like to think I still have, a shot at it. So we'll see what happens this coming season.
Yeah. And so what's the next step then in terms of that elite 15 qualification? Obviously you were in it last year. Where do you stand in the current season?
Yeah, so I was in one of the majors last year for it. I didn't qualify for Worlds for it, but this year it's even a little bit more challenging because you have to qualify into a major based on your 2 fastest times, and then through that major they take the top 3 finishers to qualify for Worlds. And then what they're doing different this year is they're sort of having 3 open races that anyone can join, and they just take the winner of that race. So because I'm from the United States, you have to go by your passport. So I'd have to go back to the US, and then that's sort of a North America or North and South America championship. They have a European championship and then a APAC championship. And the winners of those also qualify for the Elite 15.
So you'd have to go back to the US comp if you wanted to qualify through the Open Championship. You'd have to go to the US competition. You couldn't do the APAC one.
No, so they base it on passport, unfortunately, because it'd be great to travel to Melbourne, or I think it's in Melbourne, somewhere in Australia would be good. Even though that's still far away, but
it's still miles away.
But it's okay, it's just what the rules are. So you gotta play by the game and do what you can.
Yeah, got to play by the rules. And for the audio listeners out there, then obviously you can tell that you're American with the amazing accent, but you are based out of Asia and in Thailand, I believe. So talk us a bit about your story there, Gabe. Like it's quite rare to have someone like yourself who is so famous in the APAC Hyrox space. I mean, myself, being based in Hong Kong, like every time we go to an Asian race and see you always draw up a good crowd. So talk us through the story from, being from America, doing track in Cornell, and then now, living the dream in Asia.
Yeah, it's so wild, man. Like thinking back on yeah, the journey and just never would have expected it. Yeah, I had no thoughts that I would end up in Asia at all. I grew up in the middle of the US, sort of the Midwest part called Wisconsin. Um, I was a runner as a younger kid, so sort of starting in high school, cross country, track and field, that was really my passion. And um, I think that kind of laid the foundation. As you know, in endurance sport, so much of it is just building volume over time. So I started that at a relatively young age, 14, 15. Um, did that, won a state championship in the 3,200 meters, so sort of the almost like the 2 mile race. And then I went to Cornell out in New York. Had a lot of issues there. I mean, I ran cross country, track, but just a lot of injuries, man. I'm a tall guy, a little bit bigger for a runner, and I think the program there was a lot more high volume, high mileage. It just didn't work as well for my body, and just the stress of academics and everything. So I did that for 3 years. Took a year off school. Stopped running completely for like 6 years, 5 years, I guess. And then when I got over to Asia, first I worked in Singapore at a startup company there for about 2.5 years. Again, at this point, I wasn't really running or training at all. And then made a move to Bangkok after I got here with 2 bags, didn't know a single person. It was it was like complete like sort of a strange time of life. I knew I wanted to do something in Asia, but I had no home base, I had no job. I was trying to like find work online and kind of got stuck here during COVID. So when everything shut down, I had a job offer back in Singapore, but then that totally fell through, and I was just stuck here. And that's when I started coaching people in the park, finding clients to train in person, and then started doing these Spartan race competitions around. Got my name out through that, sort of built up a little bit of a community there, and then, like we said, transitioned more into Hyrox. So yeah, it's crazy, man. Like was not expecting this at all, but that's where we are today.
I feel like COVID threw out so many crazy origin stories for people. Like wherever you were in the world at that point, it can just flip so many people's lives on its head. But I'm
Yeah, dude.
interested. What was it? Why Bangkok? Like of all the places in Asia, why Bangkok?
Yeah, so I'd been here once before when I was living in Singapore. I had like a weekend trip here. And it was crazy. It was a lot of fun. I think, Thailand and Bangkok always has that notorious reputation for being, you know, a lot of parties, a lot of girls, a lot of,
A
fun
lot of
business. And
everything.
yeah, anything you could find, anything you want. But like in reality, it's just a great city. I think its cost of living is good. It's super convenient. I think like Thailand is a place to live. The culture is just very welcoming. People are really nice. And it's just easy to make friends here, I think. So yeah, I just like it as a home base. It's especially for traveling in and out too. It's super easy to kind of fly into here, fly out of here. So for all those reasons, it's just been a place that I've liked to live, and obviously all my friends, my community is here. So it's sort of a just what I've been able to build up in the last like 5 or 6 years, I guess.
And is that the long term plan to stay in Bangkok?
Yeah, I question it every year because I think any big city is super overwhelming sometimes, and as long as I'm able to get out every month or two, kind of travel around somewhere. I still like it, but it definitely can be quite suffocating as well, since all the traffic and noise and people. So I don't know about really long term, but I think for now it's still good.
Yeah, I imagine with the comps, the competition might help quite a lot. Being able to travel around different places in Asia, around the world as well. Being able to get out of the big city. We feel the same in Hong Kong. It can be really really intense. Luckily in Hong Kong there are beaches and trails and stuff that you can escape to in different islands. But yeah, the intensity must be up there with probably one of
Yeah,
the most intense places to live in the world, Bangkok.
yeah, 100%, 100%.
In with that then, Gabe. I want to talk more about like the origin story of yourself, and with what you're doing now. Are you doing full-time coaching, like in terms of running S&C, all that sort of stuff, all online coaching? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, it is now, man. For a while, it was sort of a hybrid version as I was building this stuff up. Because, you know, for me, like the whole idea was I just want to do something different. I want to follow my passion and then try to monetize it and figure out a
Mm.
way that can sort of live this lifestyle by design, right? I think I was super influenced by some books I read in like my early 20s. There's a very famous podcaster, author, Tim Ferriss. He is like the 10-hour work week or 4 hour work week, 4 hour body, a couple of these books that, the names are a little bit misleading because obviously you have to put a ton of work and effort into anything you do, of course. But I really like the idea of like him and some of these other podcasters I was really influenced by, where it's like, you don't have to live the standard life that you always were taught to believe. Like you don't have to get up, go to that job, clock out. Um, and obviously it's like I said, it's hard to do. You got to find ways to sort of make that come true. But I thought, yeah, like through coaching, this would be a great opportunity to do it. I love helping people. I like seeing that journey, that athletic journey, taking someone, having them set goals, things they might not even believe is possible for them, help them achieve whatever that is. Um, and yeah, I was doing that for myself as well. So yeah, as I was building that up, it took, like I said, a couple of years to really get to the point where I'm at now. But like currently, yeah, all my work is online coaching. I still do some group coaching here in Bangkok, a few private clients as well, but that's sort of where we're at the moment.
That's really cool, and a really cool. I'm sure a lot of the listeners to this podcast are listen to it because of stories like yours. There's been a lot of entrepreneurs that have come through with very similar stories. So I want to kind of dive into that a bit more. Um, the startup you're working in Singapore, I assume that wasn't anything to do with coaching that you're doing now.
No, man, that was so it was sort of in the health space. It was an old company called Selly Health, and um so it was sort of like, if you know Fitbit, it was sort of like a wearable
Mm.
device, and we were trying to create like a sort of a mobile application, B2B, working with hospitals, insurance companies. It was an interesting idea, really good team, good people. It just didn't really work out, right? And so I left that, but I think that gave me a lot of good ideas about just like how to build something from nothing,
Mm.
innovation, just, a little bit of an insight into that sort of world, right? Where had I gone to like a more normal job after school, maybe it would have been a little bit different. Um, but yeah, like I guess for me too, just that was a good insight into like, yeah, how do you have conversations about, because for me, like I'm very much an introvert. I don't like talking about money or sales or anything, but like that's the reality of the life we live in, right? So you have to do that if you're working for yourself. And so I think it gave me a little bit of confidence in that way. And obviously you practice it through time. And so as I started these different small businesses, it's figuring out, yeah, how do we build a customer base, scale it up, work with other people, all these kind of things. But like it just comes through practice, at least for me. Like, you can learn all the theory, you can take classes at school about it, but until you actually do it, you kind of have to like put yourself in the dragon's den and and just go for it.
For sure. What you're referencing there is it's quite actually a big step what you did. I'm interested to tap into kind of the psyche behind it. Was there like a moment when you were working at the startup pool when you left that you realized, okay, enough's enough. I think I've learnt my lessons now. I want to go off and do this thing by myself. I want to go live in Asia. I want to be in charge of my own schedule. I want to run my own business. Was there a singular moment where that clicked, where the penny dropped, or was it a series of things that happened?
Yeah, I think it was more of a series of things. I mean, like it sort of happened also just by necessity too, because like I said, when I moved to Bangkok, I didn't have anything lined up. It was a really stupid move. Like I had no idea what I was doing in my life at that point. Um, but like it was just random that I found. Spartan race first, and just kind of thought like, hey, this is really interesting. I feel like, yeah, I want to live my life in a different way and challenge myself in a different way. And then I found guys in Asia who were sort of doing that. I was looking up to. There's I think a guy named Johnny Tew, who's based out of
Hmm.
Bali, but he did live in Hong Kong. And I saw that he was doing these races and sort of making a lifestyle out of it, like coaching, traveling. And I was like, um, that's interesting. I wonder how I can make that happen as well. And obviously, part of that is you have to be good at this and get your name out. So a lot of it is like putting in a ton of training, which is what I was doing then. It was like almost like just being I don't know how to say, like, I was just like off in my own little world, training as hard as I can to get ready for these competitions, having no idea what that would bring or what opportunities that would bring. But I just thought like if I could be the best I could be, and get my name out there just through the results alone, then that could lend itself to some opportunities. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. And like I said, I really had no other options because I was doing some freelance writing online. I was trading crypto. I was just like finding any way I can to make some money just to survive. And obviously, I part of it, I picked Bangkok too because again, like compared to Singapore, cost of living here is like so much less, right? So it was just easier to kind of have the savings go a little bit longer as I was kind of going through this transitional period as well. And then, you get some stability. Um, momentum creates more momentum. So you start building on it. And yeah, that's sort of how it's all come to be today.
Were those races that you were entering and winning, were they paid races? Was there cash prizes?
Yeah, so in Spartan there was, I mean, not a lot, so it's, a couple $100 here and there, but it's enough to sort of justify a trip and then like I said, you meet people at these races, so you kind of build some connections for there. I got involved with like the Spartan race Thailand company here, so I was doing some promotional stuff as an ambassador, and then that got my name out in the community a little bit more. Um, so yeah, just a little bit, but not, not there's no pot of gold waiting at the end of the rainbow in this or in Hyrox or anything. Like you have to create your own destiny in these things. So it's all about finding the right companies, sponsors to kind of work with who believe in you. It's not going to be like the organization itself who will, it's not going to be like life changing in that sense.
And then from that, Gabe, I'm really interested in this stuff. So you've got some prize money, but then was the plan to then gain sponsors to fund this lifestyle full time so that you can travel around and go to each of these races and monetize it that way?
Well, sort of. I mean, that's definitely like it's great when that can happen. That hasn't really happened in the last like that's only happened in the last year and a half for me, I would say, where I do have people who can help me in that way, and I'm super appreciative of that. But like at the start, it was more just like I said, you can partner with a small business or company, and then if you're doing some events for them, that'll get your name out. And again, for me, it was all coming back to like coaching clients. So if I'm in Bangkok, finding people to do PT with, the shirt I'm wearing is called Thailand OCR. It's like a company I started 5.5 years ago now that was coaching people for obstacle course racing that we still do today. So um, that was one way to kind of scale things up, group coaching, private training. And then, yeah, most recently in the last like 3 years, it's been a lot more online coaching. So people, predominantly people who want to do Hyrox now, you kind of have to follow the different trends in the market, and Hyrox is booming. OCR, you could say CrossFit is sort of, these things are kind of going down a little bit. So now a lot of people are looking for, people to help them train for Hyrox. So that's sort of where I've gotten a lot of my clients from now is people around Asia, the US, Europe, who are looking for a coach, want some accountability, program structure, all that stuff.
I guess the thing with sports and I mean life really, anyone who is a coach of anyone, you are your own walking billboard, like especially in a sports sense. So
Yeah.
you mentioned at the start when you moved to Bangkok doing the Spartan races, the best thing you could possibly do in terms of business development and sales was to go out and win some Spartan races, right? And the same in Hyrox, the best thing you can do to win coaching clients is to go out and win some Hyrox races and qualify for the Elite 15. So in one sense, it's like, yes, you want to learn and reach out and do social media, whatever, to get these clients. But on the other side, it's like, well, let's just train like a fucking madman, put my best foot forward, and win these races that I enter, and then the clients will come. Do you feel that? Do you feel that when you have this success, then it leads to more like organic growth in your business?
Definitely. I think it's a fine balance though, because not all great athletes make great coaches. And then it's same thing. Like there's a lot of great coaches out there who are definitely not good athletes and maybe don't compete at all, right? So I think you got to be careful about where you balance that time and energy, and like that's something I'm always currently struggling with too, is like how do you strike a balance between, because these things are very selfish, right? You spend a lot of time training. I know you've had guests on here who've talked about how many hours they sacrifice running in the gym. And it's high volume training, right? So if you're spending a few hours a day working on yourself, there's also like all the mental prep that goes into that and stuff, and recovery. So like you can only take so much time for yourself, and then you got to be really structured. How do you give that energy back to the people you work with? Obviously they're helping you with your business and everything. So it's a really fine balance, man. And like there's definitely give and take. I think I'm sort of at that transitional period too, where like I still want to compete at a high level, but I also want to, put more effort into my coaching practice, grow that. So, trying to find that balance, which is not easy to do, um, but yeah, I think obviously it helps. Like when you compete at a high level, you just gain a lot of experience. I've done, I don't know, 300 races in my life, 500 races. I have no idea, man.
Wow.
Like countless
That's
races
crazy.
from like age 14 to now. So like all those play an impact on your psyche, your the mental strategy of races. How do you think about things? And then I think that there's a lot of value in like instilling that into the people you work with. Whereas if they have someone they're working with who hasn't had those experiences, there's a lot of theory that that person might know, but it might not be quite as valuable. I don't know.
No wonder you're so chilled when you're running around a Hyrox. You look so chilled when you're running around the outside. You've done 400 races. Whenever I do a race, I'm like shitting myself all the way around. Like, oh my God, I'm going to blow off any second now. Then you've got guys like yourself just zooming past, like that Captain America clip where it's like, on your left, on your left, on your left. It's like, boom, that's Gabe flying past.
Still painful though, man. That's for sure. Like Hyrox is
Yeah.
different too. It's a different beast for sure. It's so
Do you
painful.
reckon? Do you reckon it is then compared to other races that you've done? Like, I mean, I can't think of a better man to talk to about the comparison. Like, where does Hyrox stack then in terms of that pain threshold?
Yeah, I think it's at least for the competitions I've done, it's the top of the chart for a couple of
Wow.
reasons, right? I mean, I think it involves this strength component that is just you don't see that in a normal running race, where that's all about finding your pace, your rhythm, sort of staying in like a flow state almost. With Spartan race, that's a lot more like trail adventure running. So the pace, the time never really matters. I'd say that's still a lot of suffering, but like Hyrox is just it's so much pain up front. You get to like the sled push, you're done with that. Your legs are full of lactic. Your heart is like beating through your chest. And then you got to go out and you're only a quarter of the way done. It's such a mental toll that it takes on you. But I love it for that reason too. It's like you get done with those things and it's such a sense of accomplishment. So, um, a lot more pain up front, just a lot more variables you're dealing with. How much strength do I need? How much endurance? Trying to find that balance. How do I train for this? Like, it's challenging for a lot of people, I think. So, but that's what makes it interesting. You're trying to like solve this ever evolving puzzle piece of, how do I get the most out of myself on this day with these different variables in place.
Yeah, I liken it to sort of like a 5K race in one way, in the sense that no matter how fit you are, the race doesn't get easier. You just get a better time. You
Yeah,
just get
that's so
you just
true.
get a quicker. It's like 5K. No matter if you're the quickest person in the world or the slowest, it's still gonna fucking hurt when you try and get a
Yeah.
5K time trial. Same with
5K is
Hyrox. You
brutal.
could
Yeah.
train as much as you want or as little as you want. It's still going to hurt whether it takes you 5 hours or 1 hour. You mentioned there about the variables, Gabe. Now that's interesting because Hyrox to me, compared to other running races, yes, there are variables. But when I compare it to other like mainstream sports, I'd say there are very little variables because a variable to me is like a decision being made. You know,
Mm.
say if we're doing American football here, playing to the crowd. The quarterback has a lot of different variables they need to ID. You know, what the reading the defense, the routes of the wide receivers, tight ends, whatever, and then they make the right decision based on the variables they see. And those no decision is going to be the same across the course of a season, across week to week. However, if I were to just look at a Hyrox race and it's supposedly standardized across the world, at least they're trying to standardize it as much as possible. I would say, as devil's advocate, that the variables could actually be very insignificant race to race in Hyrox. So talk to us about some of these variables that you mentioned there and how they can actually change how your races can go week on week.
Yeah, that's a really good point. A good distinction you made. I guess variables might not be the right phrase. What I mean more is like in the context of Hyrox, you have different, cards that you can play at different times. So anyone, again, doesn't matter how fit you are, you're only going to have so many like matches you can burn in a race. And what I mean by that is, overexertion. So like, for example, one of these movements that everyone knows is like burpee broad jumps, and that's really going to jack the heart rate up. Whether you're a beginner or the best in the world, your heart rate's through the roof when you finish that movement. So you kind of have to know going in, that's going to be one of the places where I need to be able to recover from and still, hold the pace that I want to hold. And then again, there's different strategies involved. So like, how hard do I take this thing out? Do I overexert myself on, one or both of the sleds? Do I hold back more and leave it more towards the end, with lunges and wall balls? So I think again, like it's putting yourself in these different positions, both through training and the way that you're sort of carrying out, practicing this, all the way up to the race to know like, yeah, how am I going to get the best out of myself on this day? And again, for different people, it's going to be a different strategy based on like strengths and weaknesses that you can identify in your training as well. And I don't have the right answer. Like I've tried different strategies. Again, some have worked a little better than others. I still feel like I haven't fully optimized it for myself yet, and that's something I'm kind of looking to change here in the next few months as well.
What type of changes are you looking to implement?
So I mean, like with Hyrox, there's always that, conversation around compromised running. Do we do more polarized training, leave the running sort of in a vacuum and get as fast and fit as we can, and then, combine it at the very end with more of the strength training movements, or do we integrate it in more like in regular sessions? And again, coming from the background I've come from, and listening to other guests, which I actually fully agree with, who is like most of that running should be polarized. It should be sort of training on its own, right? Having you do a lot of easy, sort of like zone two, easy runs, a lot of tempo threshold runs to kind of dial in that pace, that effort. But what I struggle with personally is there's a big gap between what I'm able to do running wise and then the minute I get on a Hyrox course, and my compromised running ability is a lot lesser than my pure running, if that makes sense. There's too big of a gap there still. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, well, why is that the case? Probably having to integrate actually more sessions where I am trying to get back to the pace I want to run after coming off something like a really hard sled push, a really hard sled pull. And I do some of that in my training already, but probably not enough or just not at the right time. So just playing around with those variables a little bit.
Is that because you're at the top end, you're at the elite end? Whereas if I'm coming from someone who's just looking to get into Hyrox or just literally the average person competing in Hyrox, how specific do I need to be when thinking about my training?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for most people, this is, yeah, probably not a big problem. Like it's more just understanding the race and the demands of it. And I think everyone wants to be able to finish the race, right? So what I say to people is like, look, you got to know what these stations are. You kind of have to know what the strength capacity is, or if it's something like the sled pull, which is a very technical movement, knowing how to execute that so that when you get to that race, it's not going to take you 10, 15 minutes because that's no fun if you just get stuck on a certain station, right? So like having the ability to carry out all these different movements is super important. But then again, it's sort of like the pendulum will always then swing back to the running. So still having a lot of your training be a lot of like easy aerobic work, whether that's running, skiing, rowing, biking, swimming, something to just build that base up because that's the thing that's going to propel you through the entire race. Like your heart rate is always pretty high through these competitions. So, yeah, for like most people, it's probably not a big issue. But then I think, as you do these races, obviously you get all this data presented to you at the end. So then you kind of want to refine and see like where are the potential times that I can take off here and there. And yeah, for myself, it's probably again like the running after some of these earlier stations that I'm just not good enough at yet.
Interesting. And we talk about building a base. I'm very interested because, again, I spoke with James Kelly about this on our previous episode, and I'm actually speaking to him again tomorrow on something very niche and nerdy and specific. I think you'll like it. He's basically gonna interview me and diagnose me and my
Oh,
training program
cool.
and stuff like that. So it's going to be a real interesting one. But he
That's
talked a lot
awesome.
about zone two and easy training and building the base. And, it's stuff that I've really tried to incorporate into my training, just like easy work. But again, like how long does it actually take to build a base? You mentioned you're running when you were a kid. So you've had all those years to build this base. For me, I've really only got into running in the last 2.5 years since retiring from rugby. How long is it going to take me to build a decent aerobic base?
I guess that's what you define as decent, right? Like how do you yeah, what kind of numbers do you want to see? If we're sitting here and you say, "Hey, I want to run a 15-minute 5K," that answer is going to be very different from if you said, "Hey, I just want to, finish a Hyrox in whatever, sub 90, sub 80," right? So like it all depends on what those goals are for you. And yeah, let's be honest, like genetics, talent plays a huge role in running. That's for sure. I think that's sometimes downplayed by people, but like some people are just going to come into this sport and just be better right off the bat with less training. I could give you an example. One guy I work with here in Bangkok, he's one of the most talented guys I know where he can run once or twice a week. He can take a few months off. He can come back and run like a 18, 19-minute 5K, which again, that's not world class by any means, but like for a lot of people, that's a dream to run that fast. So, we all have different starting points. We all have different potential. It's not to say you shouldn't work hard at like what you're given. And obviously that's also the beauty of Hyrox too, is like you can make so many different improvements in different areas, right? So maybe you are really struggling with the running and okay, I'm not going to get, a ton faster here, but like I can really just dominate these stations and pull a ton of time off there. So again, like it's kind of knowing your body, knowing strengths and weaknesses. In the case for you, if it's been 2 years, yeah, it might take a little more time. It's hard to say though, like because again, it depends what your numbers are now, where you're trying to get to as well.
Well, my numbers ain't that great. I'll tell you that for free. But they're getting better. They're for sure getting better, and I
Yeah,
do I do attribute that, to be honest, down to just time in the game, like actually running consistently for 2 years, which I didn't do that before because I was rugby training, which
yeah.
is why I think, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. But the age groups that are super strong in sports like Hyrox tend to be like the older ones. They're not like the 20 to 25s. They're the 30 to 35 or 35 to 39. Now, I've always attributed that down to because I just think that these guys and girls have had just longer to build up their base and they're coming from a running background and they've just got so many years in the game. Whereas the 20 to 25, they're still in that, you know, phase of building that base up and getting used to the races and all that sort of stuff. Am I right in saying that, or do you think it's something else?
I think that's a big part of it. I think it's also just that Hyrox is sort of a new sport, right? So my prediction is we will see a shift in the next few years, assuming this sport stays around, where that like dominance, peak dominance level will be younger still. So like, yes, you're right. Right now it is sort of guys and girls in their mid 30s, honestly, but like I think that is quite old still in a lot of ways. Like I'm getting up there too, and like I can't imagine a time and day where, if you get people specializing at a younger age, you're going to see younger people start to dominate still. So like it is time in the game, but I think it's also just a product of the sport being so young too. So it's sort of both
True.
of those factors.
True. It's probably just the 35-year-olds at the moment are probably just earlier going through a midlife crisis, and
Exactly.
the younger ones just haven't heard about it yet. Although in the women's
That's
side,
right.
Joanna Wetrick has come on the pod twice now, and obviously
And
she's
she's like
absolutely smashing
23
it.
or
Yeah, and
20.
she's
She's
yeah,
super
she's
young. Yeah.
so fucking young,
Yeah.
and yeah, she's absolutely smashing it. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you're dead right. It's probably just a discovery thing. You
Right.
mentioned at the start, Gabe, like the you were a runner in school, in college, and you were a bit bigger than the other runners. Um, so talking into that strength and running combo. Now we're not just talking about Hyrox here. I don't just want to talk about Hyrox, but how do you then balance your training between the running and the strength hybrid? Because I think a lot of people listening out there will, if they're training for Hyrox, or certainly they'll just be doing Hyrox sessions. Every time in the gym is a Hyrox session, and I fucking hate Hyrox sessions. I used to do a block of Hyrox session. If I'm in the gym, I want to lift weights. If I'm not in the gym,
Yeah.
I'll go run. But I hate combining the two. I've got to be super motivated to do a proper intense Hyrox session. So for yourself then, how do you balance those two aspects?
It's again, it's like ever evolving too, man. I've gone through different periods of training and tried out different things with myself, and like, yeah, that's the common thing is like when people find out about it, they want to do the group classes, they want to combine everything. And like it's good to do that. It's good to have that exposure, know what that feeling is like, of course, but then you kind of have to, yeah, take a step back and see like, where are my weaknesses and strengths? And again, for like the vast majority of people, it's going to probably be more on the aerobic development side. When you compare those numbers to, again, what sort of like the elite athletes are doing at the very top of this sport, they're so good at the running. They're so good at the rowing, the skiing, and like, yeah, just that output, having that ability to like sustain this pace, this crazy fast pace for so long. So then that comes down to, yeah, spending a lot of time, um, yeah, doing more chill, easy stuff. Like for me currently, it's probably still quite a bit more on the endurance side for training. So like running wise, I'm not running the numbers that other guys are for sure. Like I said, back to when I was in university and got injured, I just can't run high, like what I consider high mileage, which for a lot of people's like over 90, 100K, over 100K weeks. There's no way I can do that, right? So I still run a lot. Probably in the last 4 or 5 years, I've averaged maybe like 60 to 70K a week, which again, if you're listening to this, that's going to sound like a pretty high number. Um, but I've just been consistent with it. I haven't tried to make any big jumps up. I haven't really taken like I've had one injury in the last couple of years, and that took me out for 4 months. But aside from that, I've been pretty consistent with getting that kind of volume in almost every week. So I think that's just what it is like building that up. Um, Finding that, I really enjoy doing rowing as cross training. I don't like biking, so I don't do any of that, which I probably should do some more of that to be honest with you. But like, yeah, I like the rowing machine. I like the ski erg. So using those in training as well, having some more volume on there. And then from the strength side, that's definitely where my more of my like weaknesses naturally. So a lot of time was spent just building up like sort of 4 or 5 rep max, like squat, deadlift, overhead press, getting stronger on those. And then, obviously as you get closer to the race, you start to integrate in more of the sleds, the actual movements that you have to do in the race, and then feeling what that's like to like have to run in and out of them as well. So it's sort of layering on these different elements, but yeah, a lot of it, like especially further out from the competition, is just like you could say it's basically just, yeah, running, strength training, very kind of simple stuff.
And how many runs do you split across that like 70K?
Yeah, I take at least one day off a week, sometimes two. So it's probably like five, maybe 6 runs a week generally. And then yeah, like in the gym, probably 2 or 3 days a week, I would say on average. Like I said, I don't train very high volume compared to a lot of guys, so I almost never do double sessions, very rarely. Or if I do a double session, it's what I did yesterday, where I had like a run, and then I did a little bit of upper body after. Then later in the day, I did like a swim and a sauna. So it was kind of like more chill, like zone one, almost like just really easy recovery, you know. But there's value to that as well. So like for me, it's like, yeah, because you never really want to over stress it. You got to find that kind of that ability to like push it, but then if it starts to have like negative health consequences, because that's something I've had in the past with in university, just like it destroyed my health, you know. So like I didn't want to go. I've been cautious not to go down that road of like overdoing it too much there, because I don't want to go through all that stuff again, you know. So like
Just in terms of overtraining and just overloading your body.
overloading, yeah, you know, like I had blood panels done. This is when I was 22, and I think my testosterone was like below 100, which is really low for a man. Like I was almost put on TRT at that age, and I
Damn.
didn't do that, but it's because my hormones were like crashed, dude. Like I was going through major depression at that time, a lot of really bad thoughts, and my whole body was wrecked. I wasn't sleeping. I was like on big sleep medication, uh, yeah, some anti-anxiety medication, and like then they were going to put me on TRT, and um, yeah, so I just had to take time off fully to just like get my body, my mind healthy again. Um, and so like as I've sort of restarted this athletic journey, I've always been really cautious of like how do we strike that balance between being consistent, but then not following those trends you see on social media of just like doing everything you can all the time, going balls to the wall, because you know you don't want to live your life that way. And like so, you know, if I need a day off, I'll take a day off. If I want to yeah, go just catch up with friends instead of getting that second session in, I'm gonna do that. Like, because for me, I just never want to sacrifice like health for performance, and it's a really fine balance. I think like every athlete has their stories with this, and have struggled with some form of this, you know. So yeah.
That's a really important lesson, and I think it's great it's coming from you as someone who's really at the top end of elite performance. So what was it then back in the day, aside from just the physical side of overtraining and running your body into the ground? Was that then the cause of the mental side of things as well, or were they detached?
Yeah, you know, it's a good question because it's hard to really know, right? I think it definitely didn't help. That's for sure. Like when I was um, training that much all the time, it just like consumes your whole life, right? So I think you're
Mm.
very, and you know, this is something again, like a whole nother rabbit hole of conversation, but like you got to be very careful about putting all your eggs in one basket here. You know, like so much of our ego and our sense of self, and I'm sure you can relate to this too, is like, you know, it is who you are. It's like I'm that person. This is my sport, my activity. This is what I'm known for. But that can be very, very dangerous too, because again, like if that's taken away from you, like for me, like college running kind of was, then you're lost. You're like, who am I? What am I? What's the purpose of this? What am I doing here? You know? Um, and so like like I said, as I've gotten involved with like the OCR, the Spartan, the Hyrox, like I've just been very careful about trying to strike this balance between yes, I want to go all in and give it my all and like see what I can get out of it, but it's never going to be exact. It's not going to be who I am. It won't define me as a person because yeah, I don't want my sense of self worth being just wrapped up in that one thing. Because it's always, you know, father time waits for no one. It's gonna come to an end, you know. We're gonna have to find a different thing to do and spend time on. And like I think a lot of athletes, you know, get lost when that career is sort of taken from them, right? And then yeah, you gotta find what's next for you.
Yeah, it's definitely something prevalent in professional sports, and it's a real tough one. It's hard to get out of. And how do you disassociate who you are and your worth from what you do? Especially, it's hard now with social media because you get all the clout from what you do, right? Like, say if you
Yes.
win a Hyrox, if you qualify for the Elite 15, then no shit, your Instagram post and everything is going to be the most responded one that you've had since the last time you won. You know, like
Yeah.
that's what people will comment on and give you likes for and kudos for and all that sort of stuff. So I realized something recently actually when I was talking to a friend of mine in sport, but more on the coaching side. And he was kind of like, why are you doing what you're doing? Like, what are your motivations for wanting to train hard? Because I was explaining what I'm trying to do at the moment. I'm trying to get back into swimming. And so I was like, all right, I want to do a half Ironman. I want to do an Ironman. And he was like, okay, but why? Why do you want to do that? What are your motivations? And I was like, oh shit, okay. No one's asked me that before. Well, my motivations, I thought, were because, I want to prove to myself that I can do something, but actually I kind of realized after a few questions, I love the life of elite athletes. I love living the life like a pro sportsman, even though I'm not one anymore. But also, I'm trying to signal to other people that I can do an Ironman or a half Ironman or a marathon. It's like, what? I'm not actually that motivated to do it myself, I don't think. But I really want to signal to the outside world that I'm strong enough and capable enough to do these new challenges, even though I'm not a runner, I'm not a triathlete, I'm a rugby player, but I can do this. And so for me, that kind of made me very introspective. And I was like, oh shit, okay. How many other things in my life am I doing for other people or I haven't got clear motivations for? So I imagine that comes into the psyche as well for yourself after this intensive upbringing and career in track. It's like, okay, when you sign up for these races now, what is your motivation for going to these races, Gabe? Like, what's in it for you? What's your motivation to keep training day in, day out?
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's like you have to have that thought process in place because yeah, like if you're just you, yeah, there's got to be some reason for it that isn't just to project a certain sense of self onto others. If deep down it means nothing to you, right? Like I've always been very clear with myself that, the minute this stops being fun for me, or I actually find that there's like resistance going to these events, I'm going to listen to that inner voice and I'm going to say, hey, this is a sign. It's time to say goodbye, at least for now, right? But like for me, I genuinely still love this because I find it exciting. I love the communities, like I said. In Hyrox, it's just so fun to see so many familiar faces. Whether I'm in, yeah, Beijing or Melbourne, like it doesn't matter. There's always going to be a lot of the same guys and girls I know, and everyone's super supportive. And obviously, yes, we're all competitive, but like I just love I love that vibe, man. So like I still really enjoy going to these things. And yeah, my goal is always to do the best I can. Sometimes it's really frustrating. My most recent race was definitely a disaster. It was not a good one at all. But like it's always like a two steps forward, one step back type of thing. So like, as long as I still feel like I'm performing at the level that I kind of want for myself and I'm enjoying it, then I'm gonna follow it. And I think that's probably similar to you. Like you gotta want to do that yourself. You can't just say, hey, I'm gonna do this because that's what people think that I should be doing, or that's where that's like the route that I should be going down. Like it's got to be something you really want to do too.
Yeah, and it also made me think like I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have different types of motivations. Like it's just thinking about it and understanding why you're doing something, because the events and parts of my life that I've done really well in are because I've had a very clear motivation as to why I'm doing that, so that I stay disciplined, I stay consistent. When I was a rugby player, like it was easy because that's all I'd wanted to do since I was 4 years old. So it wasn't even I didn't even think of it like work. You're just turning up every day doing what you love. Likewise, when I did my first ever marathon, it was kind of like it was my first ever marathon. I really wanted to prove to myself that I could do it because I'd never done it before. And so I don't think there's anything bad necessarily about saying, okay, well, my motivation for wanting to train like this is because I want to prove to myself that I can. I want to do something strong for myself to prove that I can not just do the event, but do what I say I'm going to do. Turn up every day
Yeah,
and do the training, and I
yeah,
think that's quite powerful, but it's just having the internal dialogue with yourself is to say, okay, why am I doing this? And so when you're the coach then, Gabe, with your clients, how much of the mental side do you talk about when you're working with your clients? Because yes, the physical, you write them a great program. They're gonna, if they do every step of the way, they're gonna nail it, right? However, often the hard part is getting them to go every step of the way and do the things.
Yeah, like I said, they've got to find value in obviously it's good to have goals, it's good to have expectations, but then you have to find some value and enjoyment in like the process of getting there. And like I think especially with Hyrox, I've had some difficult conversations with people because they don't enjoy the training. And I just have to say, like, hey, look, this is the reality. Like you're gonna have to spend some time doing some easy aerobic training. A lot of people like, yeah, they might not enjoy it. I've had some guys who, they just want to like crush it every single day. Some crazy group class or like their own, circuit workout, and they think some of the stuff I'm giving them is like it's not real training, right? So you have to have those conversations with people and like, but then also, yeah, you got to enjoy the whatever the fundamental underlying basis is of what you're trying to do. Um, but yeah, it's not easy for sure. It's not easy.
Yeah, I think it's funny what you say there because one of the Hyrox things that I did was mix doubles with my wife, and it's like so not her thing, you know. She hates running, but we did it. We trained for like 2.5 months together every Monday night, and we got through it in the end, and actually had a great time together. And again, the motivations for her for doing it was to prove to herself that she could do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's fucking awesome. And of all the races that I've done in my life, that was probably my favorite just because it was like we'd gone through this journey together and it was seeing someone like that overcome something that they never thought they could do. And yes, it's a high rocks, right? Like you see people do it in 5 hours. People can do it. But to see that look on their face when they cross the finish line, and I ask you this as a coach, how do you feel as a coach when your clients achieve something that they've actually set out and they're going to achieve? Like, how does that give you a sense of satisfaction as well?
Dude, yeah, 100%. It's amazing because I mean, what they've gone through to get there. Like you've written the workouts, you've seen like how much they've sacrificed. Like again, most people were not full-time athletes. A lot of people have families, jobs. We're juggling so many different hats and balancing all this stuff in our lives. And like, yeah, so to be able to see that process from like start to finish and it's amazing. It's super cool. I love it. Like it's a better feeling a lot of time than when I do something myself because like yeah, you just see the joy that it brings them and it feels good that you've been able to like help them along the way. And of course, there's people who don't get there and that's always really tough too because like you can never promise them that hey, I'm going to make you a an elite athlete here like because again, as we've talked about this whole conversation, everyone's got different starting places and everything, but like yeah, you just got to see like what's realistic for them and try to help them improve upon that. So yeah, man, it's cool though. It's like I said, I never thought I'd be here doing this stuff, and it's really it's like I'm very grateful that I've been able to sort of create this yeah this life and like being able to coach help people here. I mean, who knows if I'll be doing this in 5 years down the line, but like we'll see.
What would, if I were to ask one of your clients what you were like as a coach, what would they say?
It's a good question. I think probably like firm. Like I'm relatively firm, but also I believe in. I've said this a few times. Structured flexibility is something I really try to instill on people. Where like you can have a program. It doesn't mean you have to dot every I and cross every T. What I look for is just like trying to be consistent, hit most of the workouts. If you got to move days around, that's important. Listening to your body, so basing things not just on what your Garmin watch says, but like actually how you feel, RPE, learning what that means for yourself. So I think it's like trying to help people like connect more with their bodies a little bit more. Maybe I'm more like old school that way, more like intuitive training, not just going off what all the numbers and data say. Like that stuff is important. I use it, I look at it, but some people become sort of like a slave to it as well, which you don't want to do too. So that's probably maybe a big differentiator between other like coaching practices or systems.
How much of what you went through when you were younger and going through a little bit of a spiral, how much has that kind of helped you with the intuitive training instead of just looking at the data?
Yeah, I think it's been a big part of it because like everything is so connected in our bodies, like the mental, physical, it's all one of the same, right? And so um yeah, I think like with my own journey and sort of struggles primarily with like anxiety, depression in my early 20s. Again, even in my like mid to late 20s at one point. You got to like take that into consideration, and then how does that relate to training? Because training can be sort of like an escape for people, which is also a slippery slope to go down. Like, um, sometimes you got to confront these things, and it can be a useful tool. But you don't want it to be. I think the mistake I've done is I've used it sort of as like escapism and like
Mm.
just being here and like literally running away from my problems, right? Like instead of dealing with something, some conflict in a relationship, something with business, I've like decided, hey, I'm just gonna go for a long run instead. And like that's not a healthy way to live your life at all. So like you got to be careful about like, yeah, how do you balance things and not at least for me it's like, yeah, not running away from, not being conflict avoidant and just like pouring it all into training, but having it like actually, face the reality of life, tackle those challenges, head on, and then also having the time and energy to put into your own training, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, that's really interesting because as someone who uses training as a bit of escapism when shit hits the fan, and it's really a tool for me to kind of de-stress and get my thoughts clear. From your perspective, when you talk about the anxiety and the depression, um, but somewhat being caused by overtraining and that lifestyle you were living, as well as other things, can you share with us any lessons that you learned during that time that weren't to do with exercise that helped you come out the other end and kind of helped you with the anxiety and the depression, which wasn't just, right, go for a long run, let's train?
Yeah, like I think a big part of this is just figuring out like for me, I was just lost in life in general. Like I had no idea what path I was on, what I wanted to do. So it's sort of almost, yeah, like a bit of an identity crisis. But then as I've gotten into the running, not putting all my eggs in one basket, like I was saying. So um yeah, like no matter what you're going through, the people around you are always going to be super important. Like having that support network. And that was something I was really lucky to have here in Bangkok, is like finding people to kind of get me through things that I was going through. Same with when I was in my early 20s. And yeah, not just running away and putting that into training itself. Like, I've been to therapy. I've tried different medications. I think it's good to explore different options for whatever it is that you're trying to overcome. And um, unfortunately, I think in our culture now, like there's sort of this big macho alpha mentality that some guys, especially like younger guys, are almost indoctrinated to believe, where it's like I have to handle it myself, head on, be strong, you don't like, yeah, like I don't know, just this sort of like brash, abrasive mentality that you have to have, and I don't think that's true at all. Like I don't like those guys. I don't believe in that stuff, and unfortunately, yeah, like I listened to them when I was younger, but like that never resonated with me too much. So, um, yeah, like I think it's good to reach out, get help, that kind of stuff.
For sure, man. I'm right with you on that one. If you're wanting to get a PT for your physical health, then going to speak to someone for your mental health, and
Yes.
investing in your mental health is, yeah, undervalued, and still a taboo topic, especially amongst men, which is crazy and sad.
Yeah.
Um, I've only gone to therapy for the first time in the last year, and it really helped me. Even just simple things, giving me exercises to do, which I would never have done before, which consequently led me to quitting my job and starting this new life, and being a lot happier and finding more purpose and turning things around a bit. And so I think the value is really underrated in that sense.
Yeah,
Um,
that's amazing, man. That's really really cool to hear. Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that, mate. Gabe, when all is said and done, then not in your life, but if I were to meet you for the first time, how would you like to be remembered?
Whoa, that's a tough one. Well, I would like to think that I've had some sort of impact that has helped people in a positive direction, especially the hat I'm wearing now is as a coach, and like I said, that can change. But um, my motto for the Talent OCR company, for the other coaching I do, has been like push the limits and challenge yourself in a way that you might not have thought was possible at one point. So like, yeah, I think that again, all the accomplishments that people can have in like sport, if a sport like Hyrox, like OCR, running, like endurance sports in general, like they bring out something in people that is like laying dormant a lot of the time. And so, yeah, that's what I like to think now is, I can help kind of make people feel alive in that sense, especially if they've never experienced that before. If they're a beginner and this is really their first time sort of challenging themselves in this way, that's actually people I like to work with the most because you can see like just this immediate enthusiasm and like, yeah, really a renewed sense of self for a lot of people once they've finished a race or competition or gone through a really hard, training block and come out the other end. And yeah, they see all the positive benefits of that too. So I know we've talked sort of like some of the negative consequences of training here, but like there are so many positive ones. That's not the takeaway that I want people to have at all. We're like, I would love to see a more active society. I think people should get out there. They should be training. They should be pushing what they think might be possible. It's just within a fine line. And like, I'm an example of someone who's overdone it in the past, and then it's led to negative, health and mental consequences. But that's a balance you have to strike, and like, you got to find, yeah, you got to be careful with it, but still go out there and do it as well.
And as you know, Gabe, the podcast is called Abnormal. It's for normal people that want to do abnormal things, of which you are one of them, and have a very amazing abnormal story. And I thank you again for sharing it today. For the listeners and watchers out there that are wanting to do something abnormal in their lives, what would your one piece of advice be to them?
Mm. There's no perfect time, and the best time is probably now. Like, if you go do it wherever you're at, whatever chapter of life you're in, don't wait around for a better time because that time will never come. And I think like all the regrets that I've had in my life, I've usually come from things I haven't done rather than, opportunities I've taken that haven't worked out as I thought they might have. But those have all been good learning experiences too. So all the plans I've made have, like, the best plans have usually just come on a whim. Moving to Bangkok, starting this random company, signing up for this race. Um, yeah, like taking this meeting, taking this phone call. It's all just come from opportunities that I've put myself in those positions. And yeah, that, like I said, uh, just go for it and do it, whatever that is. Like, do it sooner rather than later. Create a big sense of urgency, even if you don't feel like it's there. Like, just don't get comfortable in your current routine in life if you think that there's something more you want to do, and take action on it now.
Fucking love that, man. Create the sense of urgency. There is no such thing as the perfect time, and we all know that too well. Gabe Heck, mate, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it, and it's been so good to talk to you. For anyone wanting to check out Gabe's channels, check out his Instagram, go on his coaching, slide into his DMs and ask for his coaching tips and tricks, because I'm sure he's got many more where they came from. So thank you, mate. Thanks for coming on, and always looking forward to seeing you at the next Hyrox race and seeing how you get on.
Dude, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your time in Vietnam too there. I'm sure it's beautiful.
I'm about to go for a 1K swim, which it doesn't seem like much, but holy hecker, that is
That's
like
a lot, yeah. 1K is
that's
a
an
lot.
ocean. That's an ocean to me. It's
Dang.
intense. I'm not a swimmer naturally, but hey, we'll see how we get on. You've inspired me to maybe skip the swim and just go to the bar. I'm joking. I'm kidding, of course. Of course. I'm going to go get this swim done and I'm going to feel better for it. Mate, thank you for coming on, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right. Cheers, man.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Abnormal. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing to the channel and give us a 5-star review in whatever podcast platform you are listening or watching on right now, as it goes a long way to help growing the show. Thank you, and see you in the next one.